The day Emily Harper disappeared and everything changed. On an ordinary Tuesday evening in 2006, a 22-year-old woman named Emily Harper left her parents' house in a small town in Ohio to meet a friend for coffee. She told her mom she wouldn't be gone long. She grabbed her purse, gave her a quick hug, and walked out the front door. That was the last time her family ever saw her. Emily wasn't the type of person who would just disappear. She had a steady part-time job, was close with her family, and had plans for the future. She wasn't in any kind of trouble. She didn't have money problems. She had no reason to walk away from her life. Yet that evening, something happened. Her car was found abandoned a few miles from her house. Her purse was still inside. Her phone was on the passenger seat. There were no signs of a struggle. No blood. No obvious clues. It was as if she had simply parked the car and walked away. For the next 18 years, her family lived with the same painful question every single day. What happened to Emily? Her parents never stopped hoping. Her younger brother grew up without his big sister. Every birthday, every holiday, every family gathering had an empty space where Emily should have been. The case was investigated. Leads were followed, but nothing ever led anywhere solid. Eventually, it went cold. Then, in 2024, everything changed. A cold case detective decided to take another look at her file. He sent some old evidence to a lab that used technology that didn't exist back in 2006. Within months, they had answers that finally explained what happened after Emily Harper walked out of her house that evening and disappeared. This isn't just a story about a missing person. This is a story about how one ordinary evening can change an entire family's life forever, and how, even after many years, the truth can still come out. Today on Shadow Files, we're going to walk through the disappearance of Emily Harper. We're going to look at why her case went cold for so long, what investigators missed the first time around, and how one breakthrough finally revealed what really happened on the day everything changed. Disclaimer. Before we continue, I want to be clear. We tell these stories with respect for the victims and their families. We focus on the facts and the investigation process. We will not sensationalize or dramatize violence. These are real people, and we treat their stories with the seriousness they deserve. Emily Harper was 22 years old in the spring of 2006. She lived in a small town called Greenfield, Ohio, with her parents and her younger brother, Tyler, who was 16 at the time. Emily had just finished her second year at a local community college and was working part-time at a grocery store while trying to figure out what she wanted to do with her life. She was close with her family, especially her mother, Linda, and her brother. People who knew her described her as responsible, kind, and a little shy. She didn't go out much at night and preferred spending time at home or with close friends. On the evening of April 18, 2006, Emily finished her shift at the grocery store around 6 p.m. She came home, had dinner with her family, and helped her brother with some homework. Around 7:45 p.m., she told her mom that she was going to meet a friend for coffee at a small cafe in town. She said she wouldn't be gone long and that she had her phone with her. Her mother, Linda, later said that Emily seemed completely normal that evening. She was in a good mood and talked about a project she was working on for school. She grabbed her purse, gave her mom a quick hug, and walked out the front door. That was the last time Linda ever saw her daughter. When Emily didn't come home by 10 p.m., her mother started to worry. She tried calling Emily's cell phone. It rang a few times but eventually went to voicemail. By 11 p.m., when Emily still hadn't shown up and wasn't answering her phone, her mother called the police and reported her missing. Officers responded and took the report. Because Emily was 22 years old and legally an adult, and because there were no immediate signs of foul play, the initial response was limited. Police checked local hospitals and jails, They put out a description of Emily and her car to other departments. But without evidence of a crime, there wasn't much more they could do that first night. The next morning, Emily's car was found parked on the side of a quiet road about 3 miles from her house. The doors were unlocked. Her purse was on the passenger seat. Her phone was on the floor. There were no obvious signs of a struggle inside the vehicle. No damage. No blood. It looked like she had simply parked the car and walked away. This changed everything. Police now treated the case as a missing person investigation with possible foul play. They brought in search dogs and searched the area around where the car was found. They re-interviewed everyone who had seen Emily that evening. They looked into her phone records and bank activity. There was no activity on her phone or bank account after the evening she was last seen. One person who came up during the investigation was a coworker who had asked Emily out a few times. She had turned him down politely. But he had seemed upset about it. When police questioned him, he claimed he had been at home with his roommate the night she disappeared. His roommate confirmed the alibi at the time. As weeks turned into months, the investigation continued but didn't produce any solid leads. There were no sightings of Emily after she left her house that evening. No activity on her phone or bank account. No witnesses came forward with new information. The case slowly lost momentum. Other missing person cases came in, and resources had to be redirected. By the end of 2007, Emily Harper's disappearance had gone cold. For her family, the pain was almost unbearable. Every day without answers felt like torture. Her parents kept her bedroom exactly the way it was. They still set a place for her at the dinner table on holidays. Her younger brother, Tyler, grew up with the constant weight of not knowing what happened to his big sister. Every birthday, every holiday, every family gathering had an empty space where Emily should have been. 18 years is a long time to live without answers. Emily's family never stopped hoping. They kept her case in the news whenever they could. They worked with missing person organizations. They refused to believe that their daughter and sister had simply run away. They knew her. They knew she wouldn't have left without saying goodbye. Something had happened to her, and they were determined to find out what. Then, in early 2024, a detective named Detective Marcus Hale was assigned to review some of the older missing person cases in the department. He had a strong interest in cases that might benefit from modern forensic technology. When he read Emily's file, he noticed that her car had been processed back in 2006. But not every surface had been thoroughly checked for touch DNA because the technology at the time wasn't sensitive enough. Detective Hale sent several items from inside the car to a specialized lab that used advanced touch DNA technology. This technology could pull usable DNA profiles from very small amounts of skin cells, amounts that would have been impossible to test in 2006. A few months later, the lab called with results. They had recovered a partial DNA profile from the inside door handle and the steering wheel of Emily's car. It didn't match Emily or anyone in her family. When they ran it through the system and later through a genetic genealogy database, it matched a family line that included a man named Derek Harlan. When investigators looked into Derek Harlan's background, they discovered that he had been living in the area in 2006 and had a history of minor criminal offenses. More importantly, they found that he had been in the area where Emily's car was found around the time she disappeared. Detectives obtained a warrant and collected a fresh DNA sample from Derek Harlan, who was now in his early 40s. When they compared it to the evidence from Emily's car, it was a match. That was the break they had been waiting for. Detectives brought Derek Harlan in for questioning. At first, he denied knowing anything about Emily's disappearance. But as the evidence mounted, the DNA from her car, phone records showing he had been in the area that night, and a witness who remembered seeing him near where her car was later found, his story started to fall apart. Eventually, he confessed. He told investigators that he had been following Emily that evening after seeing her leave her house. He forced her to pull over a few miles from her home. What happened next was tragic. He panicked afterward and left her body in a remote area outside of town. He had gone back to his normal life and stayed under the radar for 18 years. Using the information from his confession, investigators were able to locate Emily's remains in 2024. After 18 years, her family finally had answers about what happened to her. They were able to give her a proper burial and say goodbye. Derek Harlan was charged with Emily Harper's murder. He eventually pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison. For Emily's family, the resolution brought a complicated but necessary kind of closure. They had spent 18 years not knowing whether their daughter and sister was alive or dead. Whether she had suffered, or whether they would ever see her again. Now they knew the truth. It didn't bring her back, but it ended the constant wondering that had defined their lives for so long. Detective Marcus Hale has said that this case changed how he approaches missing person investigations. He believes that many cases from the early 2000s could still be solved if departments are willing to re-examine old evidence with modern technology. Genetic genealogy, in particular, has opened doors that were completely closed just 10 or 15 years ago. Emily Harper's story is one of persistence. It's a reminder that even when a case goes cold and years pass without answers, the truth can still come out. Sometimes it just takes the right person, the right technology, and the refusal to accept that some questions will never be answered. Her family waited 18 years for those answers. They never gave up hope that one day they would know what really happened to her. And in the end, that hope was rewarded. Thank you for watching this episode of Shadow Files. These stories show us that even after many years, answers can still be found. If this case moved you, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It really helps the channel. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, as long as you keep them respectful. We'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself.